Hi, this is Phil, and I'm here to tell you all about the Capes and Lunatics Patreon. Get early access to all of our interviews, including the monthly Chichester Chats with writer and comic book legend DG Chichester, new episodes of classic Capes and Lunatics shows, including The Quantum Zone, This, That, or the Third, and many, many more specials, all completely uncensored. Access starts for $3 a month, full video when you pledge $5 a month. Check out the link in our show notes or go to patreon.com/CapesandLunatics. Hope to see you there. Everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Chichester Chats. It's me, Phil. Lilith is back. And, of course, the man we're all talking about. He's a big deal. He's got the projects after projects. He's just throwing at us. Again, it's Mr. DG Chichester. Hello, sir.
Hello, guys. Thank you, as always, for doing this, and especially this very special self-serving episode. As opposed to our usual sort of self-referential, and this is totally self-serving. And thank you for setting it up and wanting to talk about this today.
So self-serving. Welcome to the podcasting world.
It's all that way. Yes, I finally keyed into what it's about.
Yes, yeah. Exactly. Yes, because this time, yes, we were talking about something that's not even out yet. Yes, your Axles Infernal Kickstarter. So.
Yes, and you can see it, well, which way am I pointing? That way, I guess, to the little AxlesInfernal.com, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but it's a preview site right now, and it's a Kickstarter for the first issue of a 5-issue series. It's been long gestating. It's I think, very cool supernatural thriller in the vein of almost kind of like an Army of Darkness vibe or an Evil Dead vibe. I put my Evil Dead shirt on specifically, for this, and it's pretty. I think it's pretty bold in terms of the way it looks and kind of moves, and excited to get people to know more about it and hopefully jump on board and help fund it, and also just really help share it too, like get the word out. And help spread it to more people.
Yeah, because if you go to the site and you read the intro and everything, it says so you guys had this idea like 20 years ago, and it's been percolating in your head since then.
Yes, but I don't want people to mistake that will take 20 years between issues. So don't. We're not really slow moving in that way, but no. It's actually that's I think one of the most interesting things about the story to me is. Karl Waller is my partner on this, and this is an idea that we had cooked up really 20 years ago. We worked together at Dark Horse on one of their Greatest Heroes series called Motorhead, and we didn't know each other before that. We had a really great time working together, and when Motorhead ended, we wanted to find something else to work on, and so we were throwing ideas around, and Karl remembers this a little bit differently than I do, but I'm going to go with my version of the story, where we were talking late one night, and Karl is very visual and very, sort of just situational in the way he throws odd things out, and he said, what about truckers, and they're interdimensional, and there are lots of hot women, truck stop women, and it's like, yeah, okay, I don't know what that means, and good talk, Karl, thanks. But, I hung up the phone, and I didn't sit there thinking about it, but it was one of those clockwork things that all of a sudden this bigger idea just started to gestate, which was, okay, what if the interdimensional aspect is hell, but not just one hell, but many hells. Every culture has a different hell, right? It's not all Dante's Inferno. There's the Aztec hell, and there's an Egyptian hell, and there's Greek hells,
or the real
in different
hell,
ways.
other people,
or the real hell, right? There's the Congress, and I don't know if that's on the route yet. But we said, okay, what if there are these hells? And then I said, what if there's a need for them to be believed in? Otherwise they kind of go out of existence. People don't know about them. They have to sort of deliver themselves to Earth and get people remembering what they represent. And so this idea of this underworld transportation authority, that is this bureaucratic mess that directs traffic to Earth from these many hells, and it directs it by air delivery and water delivery. But we're focusing on the trucking aspect of it. It's a very sort of FedEx system. The sort of slogan of the dispatcher, becomes every second counts when your business is eternal damnation, which is not quite the tagline, but certainly something we repeat. And then the hot women aspect, turned into this young woman, Percy Cross, who's very, I'll say, morally compromised. At the beginning, she's not bad, but she's not good either. And she somehow gets shanghaied into working one of these trucks with a co-driver, a very older, grizzled, experienced driver who's been doing this a while, named Virgil Shift. And so she gets pulled into this, and I wrote this full-blown proposal for it. It wasn't just kind of what I just gave to you. It was all these details about who's Percy, who's Virgil, who's Necros Terminal, who's this dispatcher. Oh, by the way, here's 5 issues worth of not 5 issues, almost 5 series worth of plot lines. Wow. in a very open way that sort of took the story at a full arc. We sort of said this thing doesn't just keep going. It has a world, but at some point it kind of gets to a conclusion. I wrote this whole damn thing quite literally up, and I sent it to Karl, and he was like, oh my God. And we started to pitch it around. And it kind of drove me out of comics because one of the places I sent it to was Vertigo, and I thought it would be really great for Vertigo, and it would have been. And I was trying to get the editor on the phone forever, sort of saying, I want to send this in to you. I want to be a good editorial partner because I've been an editor. I know you guys get slammed with a lot of stuff. I want you to be aware of this and not just send it cold. And so I've been calling this one editor forever. And, it's like, and nothing, no callbacks, nothing. And finally I get this guy on the phone one night, and he picks it up, and immediately he regrets picking up. He was thinking it's going to be somebody else, right? He's got a dinner date or something. But I say, listen, Editor X, this is Dan Chichester, and I'm working on a series. I think it's great for Vertigo. We got a great proposal. We got some great art. I'd love to send it in to you. Just have you know that it's coming. And, so it's on your radar, and you can tell me what you think of it. And he's like, yeah, okay, sure. Yeah, that's great. Send it on. And I'm like feeling, all right, we got our in, and the wheels are going to be turning. And then it's like, great, I'll get it in FedEx. You'll have it like Monday or whatever. And just as I'm hanging the phone up, and this is in the old days where you'd actually take the phone away from the ear and put it back down in the receiver. It's like, who are you again? And it's like all the air goes out of my body. Like I'm just sort of like, oh God. And I'm thinking to myself, all right, I'm not as busy as I was. I'm not on the A list as I was. I'm not writing the Daredevils and this other stuff, and I'm trying to sell myself. But I just felt like, man, if this is what I'm at, and this is the kind of response I'm going to get, I may as well go somewhere else and be invisible if I have to be invisible in a place where I've done a lot of work. And that was a stupid reaction because it was one person, right, who was clearly uninformed and should not have been uninformed. Not that I should have been like at the top of his list, but I was a known entity. And I think it was a bad editorial point of view. But it took the air out of me. It took the air out of sort of pushing this thing. And then I started to get involved in other stuff, and I lost touch with Karl as well. And for various reasons. And not that we had like a rift or anything, it just sort of like moved in different directions. And then the one good thing about social media was, a few years ago, really about 5 years ago or so now at this point, we reconnected and we started to talk. And almost simultaneously, we both said, hey, do you remember that thing? And at that point, it was called Route 666 because we were less creative in those days. And the Road to Hell was obviously, playing out in our minds there. But
and it's an actual real place too. I mean, it gets shorter and shorter every year as more pieces get decommissioned. But
right. So playing off that, but we immediately came into that at the same time, and I said to myself, if there's ever a sign, right, that you should do a story, this is it. Why, after 20 years, would we still be thinking about this thing? It had set its hooks in our mind. And around the same time, I had read this book by Melissa Gilbert, I think, but it's called Big Magic, and it's like one of those creative inspiration books. Just think about how you're being creative. And one of the basic conceits of the book is that ideas exist as things, right? They're kind of out there, and they'll float around to you, Lilith. They'll float around to you, Phil. They'll float around to me. They'll come into our brains, and then they'll say, I want to be told. I want you to tell this story somehow. And if you're smart, you grab onto it and you do something with it. And if you don't, they're going to say, F you, and they're going to leave and move on to somebody else. And that somebody else is going to do something with it, and you're going to sit there with a lot of regret. And so I really just pushed Karl at that point and said, well, there's a reason we reconnected. There's a reason this thing has stayed with us. And to me, that's one of the most interesting things about how I feel about like the story and why we're doing it now.
And I mean, I think it was meant to be, because wasn't this one of the things you lost in the hard drive crash early in the century?
Yeah, I'm expecting the first issue to be dedicated to Greg Wright.
Yes!
You got it. Lilith, he's already in there as like a creative consultant, but that is so dead on. I'm glad you brought, this is like we've planted the seeds of this in so many of our, conversations.
Yeah,
that's right. I mean, we talked about before, I had this hard drive crash, right after my son was born. And I lost all the comic stuff I had done, all my comic scripts, all my comic plots, with the exception of a small handful I printed out. And this thing was lost too. That big proposal we just talked about, gone. But then when Karl and I reconnected, I offhandedly had asked Greg Wright, the colorist, the editor, the writer, my good friend, do you have anything on that? Because when I'd written it, the first version, I had sent it to him, and he had been, as he always is, extraordinarily blunt and critical. And his biggest criticism of it was, stop trying to impress people with how well read you are, and just write the damn thing. Because the original version had, all these literary references and, showed off all the books I read and, to figure out the hells. And he was dead on. He was right. And so I'd rewritten it, and then he gave it his blessing, as it were, and said, this is, I hate you for coming up with this idea because it's really good, and I wish I had come up with it, which is good praise, right, from somebody else. And then he had it on his hard drive. Like, he had that copy. He might have actually had the printout. Whatever he had, he said, I've got it. And so that jumping off point became a real thing that I could then physically and electronically hold again, which, while it has changed and evolved then substantially and sequentially as we've actually now begun to work on it, was amazing to have again and read and find that it still was there. It still held up. It wasn't like watching, your favorite TV show from 10 years ago or 15 years ago and saying, oh, that was the most amazing show ever. And then you watch it, and it's got all these cardboard sets and, awful performances, and you know, everyone's like so excited about Moonlighting coming onto like Hulu now, and I'm fearing like people are going to watch it and like cringe at the fact Sybil Shepherd.
It's one of those you had to be there. That's all.
You had to be there, right? And Sybil Shepherd couldn't act then, and may be worse now. But yeah, finding that again was another like sign, right? Oh, you know, hey, we've reconnected. Hey, this thing exists. Do something with it, and that's now what we've been doing over a too long a period of time to get to this point. But now we're at this point where the issue is done, right? It's we're kickstarting something that is finished. It's, you know, it's written, it's illustrated, it's colored, it's lettered, it's ready to go. And the crowdfunding, you know, the thing we're asking people to participate in, not just, hey, I'm buying a comic, but we're asking people to, I think, be part of creating this, you know, this world a little bit, is to, you know, reward the folks who have worked on it, you know, the colorist and the letterer, you know, to pay them fairly and for the print production. But I think the risk is very low that, oh, we're going to get behind these guys and they're never going to get to it. Like, we're ready to put this thing together into the final packaging and make it happen as well.
I mean, it's going to happen because, I mean, no offense to anyone else, but I've seen people who aren't as well known as you get their projects fully funded and stuff. So, no, honestly.
In record time. No, like,
yeah.
the way that the comic book industry is set up, like, I don't, like, I'm kind of glad that it took this long, because now you can literally be fully in control, and for better or for worse, you know, whatever that means for you. Sometimes, you know, sometimes you need a little extra heavy lifting. Other times it's more fulfilling to, you know, be involved from front to back, you know? And you just have more control over it.
Yeah, I mean, that's a miracle, right? I mean, that's. I mean, I know, and I can understand this fully. We've talked about this, I think, a little on and off on things. Mm-hmm. I can understand fully the desire to have a publisher who is just going to do it for you, right? I just want to go do the work, and I do. I just want to write this thing. I don't want to have to edit it. I don't want to have to put it together, market it. Right, the marketing is like going to be insane, but
your whole life is pretty much led up to this, though. From being
there again,
right, into marketing and advertising. Like, honestly, it's like a full circle moment, and we just really couldn't be happier for you, honestly.
Thank you, but you're right. I mean, again, like that whole thing of spending 20 years in marketing and continuing, you know, to work in marketing. Right. There's lots of people who have created books and they're like, I just want now somebody to pick it up. I want publisher A, B, C, D, you know, to pick it up. But now, like you said, the world is turned and there are these tools to do it and get it published and get it printed and so forth. But you have to drive it. You have to be on top of it. And some people, I don't want to do that part of it. You know, or I'm going to kickstart it. I'm going to put it in a Kickstarter and I'm going to sit there and, you know, twiddle my thumbs and hope that somebody comes find it. But yeah, I've spent all this time in marketing, so I know how to do, you know, 50 social media ads and you know, 15 audio ads. You know, they're going to have sound clips of all of us talking. You know, once this thing is ready to go and live, then, you know, I know my cadence of emails and the way to kind of hopefully keep people involved and communicate with them. That's all going to be a drain, but it's going to be natural. And people have given, you know, great advice. You know, as a young guy named Trevor Fernandez Lenkowitz, who I met, who's done a couple of Kickstarter books, Area 51, and I think the other one is called Minutes to Midnight, who's been just really giving. I'm going to name dropping him because he's given me a lot of great advice. You know, I've sort of watched him, and he doesn't have, quote unquote, my name value, but he's successfully done 6-7 Kickstarter projects. You know, Graham Nolan, who's done some great work and raised a lot of money on the things he's done, you know, has given me some solid advice. Mark McKenna, Jimmy Palmiotti, you know, I've reached out to these guys and everybody has been so giving in like, do this, don't do this. You know, I was going to initially launch this tomorrow, right? We had talked about, like, I was going to play the October thing because it has this supernatural theme. And, I'm going to launch it October 1st and last day will be Halloween. And, you know, aren't I clever? And Graham was like, Sunday is death. Do not launch on Sunday, whatever you do. So I bumped it forward to, assuming Kickstarter gets their review process finished. You know, the launch date will be October 10th, which will also route around some days where I'm going to have some trouble being on screen, and I want to make sure I'm there for the final push and stuff like that. But, you know, it's little things like that that help you learn from other people's experience so that you hopefully have the best launch possible.
I'm just excited for this thing because I'm excited to see one of your stories where there's no editor or anyone to say, oh, hey, tone it down, Dan, tone down the bloodshed. No.
No, seriously, as a fan of your Hellraiser work, which is like actually how I first discovered you, and then also Motorhead was probably the second thing that I read of yours before I even found Daredevil and all that other stuff. Like, I'm one of those weird people who like grew up on Epic and stuff like that, so I was very familiar with that side of your work and things. So like it's like kind of like coming home, and I'm so excited to see what you do with this. And
thank you.
I just have to know.
Yeah,
Percy is short for Persephone.
Thank you.
Spoil that?
Thank you.
Okay.
Ooh,
Okay.
Thank you. Listen, it's a 2x4 that if you like yes, yeah, and a guy in hell named Virgil. I mean,
yes.
Yeah, I'm not being exactly subtle about certain things, but on the other hand, I'm using it. I think it's to good effect, and you'll see, you know, how we play that out. Two things to that. You know, thanks again for knowing Epic and knowing all that stuff, that's how I grew up too. But it's, you know, not having an editor. I'm the editor, right? And Greg Wright's been the editor a little bit, you know, because he schooled me on some stuff on this first 5-issue storyline, and he was like, "That makes no sense. That's unclear." Which I actually held off sending it to him for the longest time because I was scared he'd hate it, you know, and he's like my best critic, and if he hated it, then it'd be like, oh goddamn. And the first thing back from him is like this long email, like the first line is like, "None of this works," and then I'm like, you know, I'm crestfallen. Then, you know, you scroll down and then, you know, gotcha. And then he goes into the stuff. So he's evil in his own way. But
that's
all editors are.
That is a great tool to have in your arsenal, to have a friend who can be totally blunt, honest, and be a dick like that. Yeah.
But still in a constructive way.
Yeah.
We
want to
that.
see you succeed.
You need that. You need the person who is going to call that out. You can't have people who are just as well-intentioned as they are. Yeah. Oh, this is really good. Hey, I really enjoyed that. Okay, that's great. I'm happy for that. But I know at this stage it needs something, and it did. It was like there were places where, you know, this first issue, even like the story doesn't unwind in this bloody mess. I mean, I'll say that right now. It's not that kind of thing. But it unwinds in its own strange, now we're into the mid 2000s kind of way. I think if I had written this in the 90s, at the end of the 90s as intended, it would have come off differently. Like the bones of the story, the spines of the story would probably be the same, but it would have been much more teeming with 90s action, right? I'll say, you know, it would have been
big guns.
yeah, without the guns, but big guns. It would have been Daredevil Black Armor. But
joke's on you, buddy. It's making a comeback.
Which I keep, you know, when we're gonna have episodes on that, because I keep seeing what this guy Netho Diaz is doing, and it's like, oh my god, this is like just unbelievably crazy. But the flow of this really became something I wasn't expecting. And even in the first issue, there's a fairly big kind of setup scene where you understand Percy is, as I said, this morally compromised kind of character, but she does a certain thing to kind of show us that she has more going on. There's some quote unquote good in her. And I had written the sequence, to flow. And it, as I looked at it, I was like, I don't really need captions and word balloons and this kind of stuff. going through here. It just kind of works. But Greg looked at it and he was like, my eye is going over this page so quickly, I'm actually missing things, like the flow of it. And in that case, that was a good cue to sort of say, I need to put certain things here to slow the reader down so that they're pulling it back in, which I wasn't considering because I was just saying, oh, it's the story and we're kind of going through it. And so I'm so grateful to have had that bluntness to bring it, I think, back around and plant more seeds of things that I had sort of had in mind, but I was able to kind of insert them more to set things up or enrich the characters and then open it up in a way, hopefully toward the end, that really hooks people to want to come back for more, of this first 5-issue storyline, which is then hopefully then the gateway to many more stories to kind of come.
Yeah, I when I was reading through the thing and it says, Greg Wright had it on his hard drive. I forgot. That's how I wanted to introduce you from now on, to be like, DG, Mr. DG, now I back up my hard drive, Chichester.
Oh, yeah. I have 2 backups running. I mean, it's honest to God.
You live and you learn, seriously. Yeah.
I live and you learn. I was actually thinking of adding like a third cloud-based one or something at some point.
If you do, let me know. I got a perfect NAS for you to set.
Oh, okay. I will definitely. Yeah, if I'm going to go that route, but I am religious about checking the hard drives and double backing them up and automating it all. I'll have problems in the future, but I do not believe that will be one of them. And as I say that, I'm knocking, on
everybody knock on wood.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was devastating.
I couldn't imagine. Yeah.
Just have all that stuff kind of go, and then you're like, all right, well, then you have nothing to even refer back to, right? There's no sense of just history or whatever. The couple. It's weird to read the couple that exist. The one that the one issue of Daredevil, the 380 one, which I did with Lee Weeks, is like the only Daredevil thing that's left. And then there's a couple of Terror Incorporated plots that never got printed. There were quote unquote inventory stories that Jorge Zafino had done. And so you read those and you're like, it's a time capsule to somebody who I'm not anymore.
That's why I can't wait for Daredevil Black Armor to see, what.
That you'll find no. Oddly enough, you will find no complaints from me on that one. There will be nothing about I think that's about as pitch perfect as I could do a Daredevil story. And I have full confidence in what I've done and what Netha was doing, and I feel the same way about Axles Infernal. I feel very comfortable with the story and the flow, and the hooks we're putting in, and the weirdness of the situation, and her as a character has really, we've talked about that flow state before, but I feel she writes herself. She's written herself. I mean, there's been challenges in doing it. The length of time, not just that 20 years, but even kind of getting to when we finally started. I wrote the 5-issue block a while ago at this point, and getting to this first issue for various reasons took Karl a bit longer to illustrate, and he also wanted the leeway to expand the page count. So I wrote it in my mind, I wrote it for 18 pages, I think. And knowing that then he had the leeway to expand it out to 20, 22 pages. We knew that was going to happen. But in doing that, sometimes the flow got screwed up a little bit. And also because it took him a bit longer, certain things then didn't connect as well. Just the more time you spend on something, you overthink, you rethink. And so we had to have some back and forth on that, which made it creatively interesting to kind of correct that along the way. But that's a good part of the process.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say that must be so creatively freeing. It's just like, you don't have to answer to anyone except your partner on this project. It's like, if we need more pages, we'll do more pages. We'll do whatever we want.
In a way, it is, but you have to then be, and I've had to take the mantle on of editor, beyond what Greg has contributed. I've had to look at things and be you need an editor. I mean, we can joke all we want, editors are evil, and they're not. I mean, some are, some are, but I've been lucky to have a lot of really, really good editors, and I was, I think, a good editor, and you need that person, not just to traffic manage things and put things together and kind of keep you on schedule. You need that guide and that outside influence to not just say, oh, I want to add as much as I want to add, because maybe you don't need that, right? Why are we opening the sequence up? It's actually works on 2 pages. Why are we making it 4? Or what are we doing with the way we're approaching it, or why aren't we approaching it right away? There's a critical moment in this story, and I relate this in one of the audio ads that'll be going up, so you can skip that one or nod your heads along when you hear it. But I think it's a good creative example was, there's a big reveal and a big spread in this issue, and Karl kept putting it off. He kept putting that moment off. He'd do this other stuff. He'd redo this other thing. He was kind of doing everything except this spread. He was sort of skipping over this. And he was doing it because he felt intimidated by what it was. And then the longer you delay something, right? I should call my friend, or I should write that letter, or I should do that proposal, or whatever I got to do. The worse it gets to when you get to it in anything. And creatively here, finally, it came time. You got to do the spread, Karl. It's like, and so he did it and he sent it. And I was like, that long pause, I just did there. And I was like, okay, I guess that's what the script says, sort of. And I guess that's what the moment is, sort of. And I was trying to be partner-wise, Lilith. It's like you're trying to kind of incorporate the other person's point of view. It's not just my book. And so, I called him up and I was like, so let's talk about this spread. And he was like, yeah, it sucks. And I was like, what, wait a minute. I'm ready to be all diplomatic and like walk my way through it and kind of like, oh, it kind of works. And what are you trying to do here? And I said, if your attitude is like, it doesn't work, we're not even having this conversation. That's not the thing. What do you need here to be you, right? What is missing from the way it's written, or the situation that we're in, or where we are in the story? And so we had a long creative conversation about that. And illustration wise, there's nothing wrong with what he did. It tells the story sequence at that point. It's a good, solid spread, piece of art. But it didn't deliver on all of that extra, like that nuance, that stuff that you want to happen that goes beyond the page. So that was a good creative discussion and a necessary one to have that had sort of come out of the expansion of time, unfortunately, that was around certain things. And so, he went back and then, ripped it up and, just went rock and roll on it. And then, brought back something that I looked at and I was like, oh, okay, welcome back to the same book. And, which now works really well. And he's worked really closely with the colorist, a guy named Wesley Wong, to just deliver. And if folks, since we don't have the Kickstarter URL for you right now, if you go to Axles Infernal, AXLESINFERNAL.com, it's a little preview site, and you can see some of the art with the coloring, a little movie trailer, which I think is kind of cool. And, but you can see the coloring style he's asked Wes to go for is a very almost watercolor, painterly style. It's very bold. It's very bright. It's very engaging. but it's a little different than the typical rendered coloring of a lot of comics that are out there.
And I have to say, I feel like this character's for me because she's a redhead.
Yeah. In fact, that's exactly why we designed it that way, Lilith. Yes. Karl was going in a totally different direction. I said, well, I do this podcast, and Lilith will want to own this. So,
when I saw the trailer, I was just like, oh, neat.
Oh yeah, I mean the art too. I mean, it's just very pleasing to the eye. I mean, it's very. And I know you.
Yeah, the preview set's pretty cool. That trailer is really good.
Yeah,
very well done. Love the voiceover actress that did it.
Thank you. I was really pleased to find her. She and casting that, kind of like just was fun too, right? Doing a little crowdsourced, Fiverr type of thing. I wasn't through Fiverr, but that sort of auditioning and then finding somebody to do the voice and it was a weird, talk about weird coincidences. She is in a town called Putney, Vermont, and Putney, Vermont is where we used to go through when I was a kid, on like family trips. And there was one of these basement bookstores that I first kind of probably fell in love with comics. It's like I'd want my parents to detour to Putney, Vermont to go back to that basement bookstore so I could rifle through what to my mind's eye was this ginormous comic book collection. So I thought that was just a really weird coincidence that on this thing that I'm doing on my own.
Man.
Yeah, it is. Isn't it very circuitous and circular? And that was like, okay, that's how I cast her, but after the fact, discovering that's where she, she was a great extra surprise.
Are we allowed to say who the variant cover people are going to be, or no?
Yes. No. Thanks. Yeah. Thank you for making me actually be a salesperson on this, Lilith. Yes, we secured Dean Kotz, who is doing a variant cover. Who's done a variant cover. So he's from Black Hammer and Krampus and a bunch of other things. So hit him up at Terrificon. Invited him in to the world, and he took a couple of ideas and really ran with them and did a I think really just fun visualization of this dispatcher, this demonic dispatcher, Necros, doing almost like the puppet master sort of thing over Virgil and Percy. So it's not a scene that takes place in the book.
He's like, I don't want to hear no bait and switch.
No bait, no. But it's it's one of those cool like little abstract comic covers, and it was fun and great to sort of see somebody else do something with this world. Because while Karl is obviously the main driver of it.
Oh, I get it. Main driver. Yes.
Punish intended. I wasn't even going there, but now I will. He's been one of the first people to say, like, we have a lot going on in this world. And maybe there are other places, for people to play along. And I think he was excited to sort of see what somebody else than him would finally do, which opens the idea that, we could do a story arc or small stories, in between, the length of time it took to kind of get to this first issue. I also wrote like 3, 4, 5 mini stories, like little 8-page stories, 9-page stories of these little like side trips that Virgil and Percy would be taking in addition to the main stories. Once they're together, this first 5-issue sort of series has to happen to kind of play those stories out, because we have to get the rhythm between them. We have to see what happens. We have to get Percy in the driver's seat, as it were. But after that, while there's other sequential story arcs that happen, my favorite title of one is, Bring Me the Head of Nikola Tesla. But that's like down the line. But these little mini stories, I was saying to Karl, I was doing them to kind of tease Karl along, say, look what else we could be doing. So they had the intended effect to kind of galvanize him. But, there could be a little mini anthology book as a bumper before the next big storyline. You know, maybe we get 3 or 4 people in addition to Carlin to do these little mini stories, which are all part of their world. And so even this variant cover sort of said, hey, this guy got really excited about it, and he got it right away. You know, we sent him the preview issue. We sent him, you know, the behind the scenes stuff. He's like, I get it. It's like, you know, it's all over. And it was tough. You know, I went up to Dan Brereton to get just a pull quote, you know, for one of the things. You know, I said, if I send you the issue, could I get a little, you know, pull quote, which he delivered on. But, you know, Dan like lit up right away and was like, hey, do you want me to do a cover? And it was like, yeah, you know, I would, but we got one, and I'm not going down the 90 variant cover things. I guess that's the thing.
No holograms.
No,
okay.
no foil flames or anything. No,
not
lenticular covers.
Not yet. Maybe you know, some bonus thing. You know, when it hits a certain number. But you know, we'll figure that out down the line. But I was doing my research.
We always appreciate the conservative variant covers.
Yeah, I thank you, because I'm looking at some. You know, obviously I looked at a lot of Kickstarters and I backed, you know, a fair number of Kickstarter comics, but in doing my research and saying, okay, how do I frame this out? How do I talk about the rewards? And maybe we'll talk about those in a second. You know, it's people like 20, 30 variant covers. And then there's the not safe for work covers. And there's the, you know, and you know, and I'm like, I'm losing my mind trying to figure out, did this many people order variant covers on independent books that nobody knows the characters around? And how do you even keep track of that? How do you print that up? I'm just like, you know. So I just said, you know what, let's do one variant cover to start with and call it a day and do our other stuff.
I mean, yeah, because now you have to. I mean, you're in everything, like pricing, you know, printers and everything, right? It's just
yeah, and you got to factor all that in, and I think we have fairly. You know, I looked at it, and you know, for example, the base price for the comic itself, the printed comic is $15. Like that's what we put up there, which is obviously more than you're going to pay if you walked into a store and bought a comic. But you know, we have to factor in packaging and shipping, and that's not cheap. I mean, I want to package it well, so that's like $3, right? That's
I think when anyone backs a Kickstarter, they know it's like you don't have like a big, you know, Disney or Warner's machine behind you.
Right,
so, yeah.
Right. And comics don't ship media mail. You know, there's some stupid old law, which, you know, somebody should.
Taxes.
You know, yeah. You know, and so, yeah, you factor all this in, and it adds up. And so we put that into the price. You know, I know some Kickstarter things are like, hey, the book is $6, and then you back it. And then I don't think it's a bait and switch, but then you get to the end of it and there's $7 for shipping. And then your book is now $13. So we've packed everything into that. So if you want the book, you know, that $15 is everything. That's the book and the shipping and everything else included. If you want the book with the mini print and the sticker or whatever, you know, it's just whatever the price is, and the shipping is included in there. And hopefully I've done the math well enough where I'm not going to be in a hole. I don't think I will be, but you know, like just so we can, you know, and you have to cover that stuff. You have to think through all those things.
Yeah, I prefer the all-inclusive price. I don't like getting down to my cart and I'm like, oh, shipping wasn't included, because that's just kind of a norm, you know, in the price nowadays. Thank you, Amazon, you know.
It gets a little, you know, I don't think anybody who's doing that is trying to kind of, I mean, maybe they're enticing you a little bit more because, $6, like that's not bad. But then you get to the other end, and like I said, it's another $10 for, you know, shipping and packaging, and then you're a little bit more hesitant about possibly hitting that buy now. But so I figure put it up front, make it fair. I mean, I put that price out there, and I had some people who have done significant Kickstarters, you know, saying you're pricing it too low, you know, jack it up to this. But I just felt right now for what this is, I'm looking at it and I'm saying, what would I react to? Like, how would I react gut wise? And this felt like something fair between all the different things that you could go through, whether you want just the PDF comic. There's a kind of a cool, I hope it's a cool version, of the PDF where you can get the PDF and the script in one. So the page count won't quite be matched, but I'm going to integrate the script in with the art, so you can sort of like read along with it in a kind of a bifurcated way. There's a cool mini print that Karl is doing, or has done. There's some cool stickers you can get to plaster all over the place, which I was giving away at cons, but now you have to buy them. And
what you get for not going to see DG Chats?
That's right.
That's right.
You could add for free. And there's some original sketches that Karl's going to do. Custom sketches, for a certain tier. There's original art. Karl does not have a lot of hold on his art. He doesn't really seem to care about that in the sense of like, I'm going to hold it forever. He's happy to kind of move it on. So there's some really bold black and white art that's going to be available, through the different reward tiers if people want to be get listed in the book. There's some producer credits and that kind of thing that folks can jump on, to sort of show some additional support. And I think that's what I'm really, asking people to think about more than just, hey, you're buying this comic book. You're being part of the creative process. I think that's how I always sort of feel when I back a Kickstarter, is that I'm helping these folks make their thing possible. And that's different than just purchasing a comic. So hopefully people get a little bit of that mindset. And if not, then hey, just get a comic and a reward and jump on board.
That's the thing about like the comic book sphere of Kickstarter, though. Like, it's very collaborative. Everybody kind of just understands what it is.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I don't think you'll have a problem with that at all.
Yeah, I hope so. And I hope like by communicating it and marketing it and pushing it in the right way, that comes across. As I was saying to Phil before, we went live, and I think you jumped on, Lilith. I by Kickstarter's own standards, yesterday I was supposed to get out of the review period, so I thought I'd have the Kickstarter URL to sort of say, hey, go to the preview site right on Kickstarter. But if you go to AxlesInfernal.com now, you can sign up for the mailing list, and then I can drop you a line as soon as we have that review period finished. But hopefully that will be finished in the next day or so. And then, as I said, we're planning on launching it and going live on October 10th.
Be there, be square, kids.
Exactly.
Yes, exactly. Hey, kids comics in a Kickstarter, sort of way. But no, it's I think it's we all read a lot of comics, clearly, and some you judge based on nice effort, but you're sort of scratching your head and like, what are you trying to tell you here? And I think we've really leaned into this to deliver a good package, a really, really good package in terms of how it reads, how it flows, the artwork, the setup to sort of a larger world, and the folks that I've shared it with, the full PDF preview, I think I've come back with, I'm really intrigued. Like, what happens next? It's got a lot of great, scary, weird, twists and cues of what's going to happen. And, if you go along with us here, you're going to be, part of really, really opening it up, in issues 2 and 3 and so forth, where we see more and more of those multiple hells and that delivery service and the characters, that occupy, the world beyond Percy and Virgil, right? There's a lot more, to come in a very, bizarre way, that I think is worthwhile, and a story I'm excited to kind of see come to life.
So yeah, I mean, go to all these conventions whenever Mr. Chichester appears. Go check this out. I'm sure he'll have preview stuff. And again, I'm just waiting for the big 3D printed Axles Infernal truck that'll be sitting on the table.
Yeah, that one might take a bit.
That's why the background's blurred out. He's working on it. Right now.
I'm working on it now. Yeah, After the Daredevil helmet, the stand got trounced in Austin. I don't.
Oh no!
I got it. Oh, well-intentioned people came by, and like, oh, this is cool, and like, 3D printing is a strange science where if you don't put the right supports in the right place, it's very easy for somebody to like snap something off it unintentionally.
Now it's battle damaged.
Now it wasn't the helmet, fortunately. It was like I had a stand that it was kind of on, and elevating it, and the stand had a little like point where it kind of went into a base, and this is going down a 3D printing road, but there weren't the right supports between the base and the insert, and so that like snapped off, like a little Pez, and and so I was able to repair that easily enough. But in the moment, it was like, what are you doing? But this is I think this Axles Infernal is going to be just a really I know it's an exciting ride for me. I know it's going to be probably very interesting to sort of see what happens as we launch and hopefully get to this number that we want to do to secure this funding, and if it goes beyond that, so much the better. We can add on things to that, and we can feel more secure in knowing that we can then continue the story for other people, for people to continue to enjoy it.
How did you land at 5 issues? I'm always curious about like how people determine what that is for their Kickstarter.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, this isn't the funding for the 5 issues.
Right,
just to be clear, this is for issue 1. But it felt like the right number of issues to kind of tell the story, and this is where I guess when you said it earlier, Lilith, like I had the luxury of just telling the story the way I wanted to tell the story. So I always knew what the opening to the story was. This goes back all those years, or a variant on it. Originally, the story was going to open in a city where she was like in a New York City kind of whatever coffee shop or cafe. There was a scene in my mind for a long time, what would happen. But then I was actually in a dusty little California town around the time I started to kind of write it, and Mariposa. I remember it very, very clearly, and I said, this is where she should be. This is the kind of location she should be in to start it. She should be on the road. She should be, much more, not seedy, but sort of like kind of blasted environment. And they
at least it wasn't Riverside. I mean, Mariposa. It's like old like mining, and there's like a cool museum up there. I can totally see how you got inspired for that, for sure.
And it felt really right. And so, but then knowing that opening scene, and then knowing how that led to the multiplicity of hells, and it led to Necros kind of setting up the quote unquote deal with the devil that she really didn't have much choice around. To get pulled into this, press ganged into this service, that was always kind of there up to that point, right? There was a sequence I described to Karl where Necros was really literally in her face, and that's all I knew, right? That's as much as I really knew for sure. But then once I started to kind of sit down and actually said, okay, what happens now? Well, what happens now just sort of kind of come very naturally, and then the what happens now became this, and the what happens now became that. And it led then to a point where, as I said, she's in the driver's seat, or at least she has her CDL, which is not in this case the commercial driver's license; it's her commercial damnation license.
Oh, nice.
And so she has that, and then it's got a little bit of not a cliffhanger, but sort of okay, the team's all together, we're ready to kind of go on to our next adventure, and we're 5 issues. Like it felt like right. And then I could say to Karl, this is what I think it is. And he got really excited. And then we were able to say, okay, this works. This works as this flow. And then, we can then go from there to the next adventure or a little anthology or whatever naturally, because now we've set things up and set things in motion. So it was just allowing myself to kind of follow those characters along or show them where they were going to take me. And, to your earlier point, if this had been written earlier, like, 1999 or whatever, it would have been probably much more guns blazing stuff. And there's plenty of action. There's plenty of fire and there's plenty of,
but like almost like an
fierceness.
artificial where they're like, hey, yeah, add a couple more punches.
Right. And that didn't feel like the moment. The moment at the end of this story, which is really, when they finally find out what they're hauling, this whole story, like there's a delivery that's kind of going on and they don't really know what it is. And that's kind of the way Virgil's often been as he's done these deliveries over the years. And one of the things that Percy starts to change in him and influence him is like, well, what the hell is in the back of this truck? Like, what are we delivering? Like, cause to him, it's like, I've got to do this. And the deal and the deal that Hell makes with them is, you do a certain number of deliveries and you earn a certain number of points, you get out of this. Right. But Hell being Hell or Hell's
interest
being
rates.
Yeah. Interest rates. Right. So every time you do something and then you do something a little bit wrong, maybe you take a wrong turn. Maybe you go through a red light, the little sins add up, so in a way they're never going to get out of this service. But so Virgil's attitude is like, I'm just going to put as many miles and as many deliveries on the books as I can, as quickly as I can. And, what we're delivering doesn't matter. But when we get to the end of this story, and this is like that 5th issue, Percy's the one who's different. Percy's the new influence. And it's like, what's in the back? And what's in the back, becomes this terrifying, but I think also very, I'm going to say, lyrical moment. And Karl was even surprised, when he got to it. It's like, wow, that's something he didn't expect. And it's something I didn't expect, right? Probably in my first version of it is like, it's going to open it up and it's going to be, Cthulhu's little brother, like, hi,
think of that, baby Cthulhu.
Like, you say, oh, look, hey, like I got little tentacles like waving around. Right. And maybe later on one of those deliveries will be something like that. And one of those like little short stories, there's a delivery like that, which I think is a lot of fun. But this one, was just, who's there? What's in that back of that truck? And that became something very special for this storyline, which would not have been there if it had been written before, which was like the feeling where it's like, this is its thing, isn't it? Like, I don't have control of this anymore. It's telling its own story in its own rhythm, which is great, right? You want to be able to feel that and know that you're shepherding it more than forcing it.
Excellent point.
Yeah. All right. If there's no more questions, Lilith. All right. So is October? No. Is October 10th the date?
Unless there is some bad review thing from Kickstarter, which I can't imagine there would be. As I said, it's in Kickstarter's review process. I've submitted everything in terms of the way it's set up to go, the rewards, et cetera, the risks, which are minor, in terms of like, something happens to the paper supply or something like that. So October 10th is when it's intended to go live. If you go to axlesinfernal.com right now, that is my preview site. You can get it right there down below, one direction or the other. I'm mirrored, so I guess it's there.
Yep.
Go there. You can get a preview of what it's about. I think you get a good taste of what it's about. A lot of what we've just said is accented there, but you can sign up for a mailing list. So you're on that mailing list as soon as Kickstarter says the preview site's ready, the real site's ready, whatever, then I will send you everybody that URL. And then as of the minute I have that URL, I'm going to start pushing it. And then from October 10th on, it will be unavoidable. I think in terms of any of my sphere of influence in the social media space, I have some, I think, pretty cool ads, videos, promos and stuff to keep putting out there. And what I'd ask of people is if they're jazzed about it, obviously support it. And I'd love your backing and your money, but more so, as much, share it out.
Yes.
That's the real thing. That's the key to finding out about this. So even if it's not your thing right now, or maybe you're strapped and you can't really support something, please share it. Like, share it with folks that would like this kind of vibe. This, like I said, this kind of army of darkness. Greg Wright again, described it as the Good Place meets From Dusk Till Dawn, which is probably my favorite description of all time. Because there's some qualities of that. There's qualities of what is evil and good, and obviously From Dusk Till Dawn's a ripping good ride.
Yes.
So, check it out. Check out the preview stuff. You'll get a good sense of what it's about, a good sense of the energy, and hopefully it's something you want to join up with.
Yeah,
Hot take, it's the best George Clooney movie.
Oh!
Wow.
I was going to say it's the best Cheech Marin movie. Oh, okay.
Oh, no. He's got way better movies than that.
the best Tom Savini movie. Yeah.
Exactly.
But yeah, I'll put the Axles Infernal link in the show notes. So everyone,
Thank you.
Yeah, it'll be down in the show notes. But yeah,
really
go support
it. We totally can't wait.
I know. It's going to be a hell of a good time there. You can put that quote on the cover.
Oh, that's
and you can quote me.
Phil Perich, Capes and Lunatics podcast. Yes.
We've been waiting all episode for that promo line. Yes. And it will be. I think it.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Just the preview. That's what I said. I'm excited. I was disappointed when I scrolled to the bottom. I'm like, there's no link to sign up. I wanted the link already. Damn Kickstarter.
Great. So good stuff. So,
yes.
Do I have homework next episode? Or
yes. Well, of course, I'm sure Axles Infernal will be live by that point, so we'll get an update on that. But I figure since probably the November episode, we'll probably talk some Daredevil Black Armor #1. So
that would be cool.
So
yeah, sure.
So for the October episode, I'm thinking to get everyone in the mood, to refresh everyone's memory, let's do Daredevil Tree of Knowledge.
Okay, all right, that's a heady one. That's a lot of stuff.
Get everyone in the mood.
I'll find my Wired review from that, and we can relive my glory days of being mentioned in Wired magazine.
Oh, nice!
Read that out loud.
Nice, yeah.
That'll be fun. That'll be a lot of fun. Yeah, and I think that would be cool for a November episode to do something like a real time. Since we've done all this retroactive Daredevil stuff, it would be great to hear now your guys' reaction to something brand new.
Yes.
And just say, man, you lost it. Like, your old stuff was better. That would be no, I think it's ripping. I'm really excited for it. Not that I've seen it altogether yet.
Because I looked it up. I think it might come out the day before Thanksgiving. Is that? Do you think that's that?
It's November 22nd, so it's that
Tuesday.
So we could do an episode.
So another reason to give thanks, right kids, around the table. The day after, the next day.
That's what I'm saying. I am saying, and that will be kind of unavoidable too, because I've got my whole plan for that is just 120 days of posts about Black Armor.
Yes.
Between quotes and Netho's preview art and some other goofy stuff I've got planned, I think we'll give people plenty to remind themselves about it. And of course, they could listen to my Spotify playlist.
Yes.
And there's a Spotify playlist coming for Axles Infernal as well. So
yes,
look for that. So I'll set that up soon.
Yeah, because I made sure. Yeah, I got that playlist for the Daredevil Black Armor. I'm like, I can't wait to read this to see if I can match up. Be like, okay, what was he listening to when he was writing which scene? And
well, Netho didn't know I had that, and when I posted that, he posted me a note on the side and said, this is a great list. I'm going to listen to this while I finish the rest of the third issue.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
Which, I thought was pretty cool.
All right, kids. So there's your homework. Go October 10th. Go subscribe to the Kickstarter, and then next month, Daredevil Tray of Knowledge. They prime us for Black Armor in 2 months here. So,
guys, thank you so much for doing this very special episode and helping push this out. And I'll certainly be pushing this episode and using some cues from this as well, especially that it's a hell of a good time. So that.
All right. Just stick around for a second, Dan, as we'll end this. But,
yeah.
All right, kids. Thanks again, and come back next month.